right. Well, well. Just waiting for this thing to start. Okay. And I'm sure it'll take a little while for people to stroll on in. This is the RPG Crawl. And this is going to be another of those quick looks slash free slash pay what you want type tabletop role-playing games. I do these intermittently. Those of you who've been watching my channel probably have seen a couple of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through bit by bit. I have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 of them selected to look at today, but I guarantee you that I'm not going to get to all of them. I might get to more of them than usual. So, for those who aren't familiar, this is where I every week when I do my RPG news roundup, I select any free or pay what you want RPGs that kind of catch my eye, because there are quite a few of them. There are far more than I cover here. They range from little one-page dungeons to full-on RPGs. And I go ahead and set them aside when I have enough to do a stream. Then I go ahead and just give my first impressions slash quick review of them, because quite frankly there are so many out there that I can't give them a proper full-on review like I would like to. In fact, I am very much behind on many reviews. My next review that's coming up is going to be of the Lankmar box set for DCC RPG, and I am still I'm still finishing up the script on that. I needed to get that out months ago, but my schedule's been pretty hell. So anyway, this is going to be like the usual, just a quick look at things. As always, I will start with some 5th edition stuff. I will move on to general OSR stuff. And I have a couple that don't quite fit into any other category, and we'll see. And as always, I will spend probably more time on adventures than I will on full-on role-playing game systems. Although this week, the RPG systems that I looked at, because there's always like a few like random unique RPG systems, they are pretty lightweight in terms of page count, so I may actually get to take a deeper look into those than before. So anyway, without further ado, let us start with Hurricane Deathbot from Watcher DM. Go ahead and pop it up on screen real quick. This is a 5th edition compatible, I guess, adventure. It is pay what you want. It is just a couple pages long. I will go ahead and throw the link up into chat real quick as soon as I post my affiliate link on it, because let's face it, people occasionally do order these things, and I need to start posting the affiliate links on it. I also need to start posting these things in the comments proper after I do one of these streams, because I know more people watch these after I stream than during the stream. Probably because I don't stream according to a regular schedule, which is just completely on me. So here is Hurricane Deathbot's link, as soon as I can post it in the chat. Come on, okay, there we go. There's a link, and what this is, and I'll take a look at the thing, a classic 5-room dungeon design meeting the terse fit of 2-page layout in this one-shot for 4 PCs of level 9. And I got my own thoughts on the 5-room dungeon design stuff. I'll probably have to get into that. That could be its own video. Anyway, introduction for as long as anyone can remember. First of all, this looks like a Trifold pamphlet. Yeah, this is just going to be like one of those ones where you print out Trifold pamphlet. It's got 3 pages, one of which is the open gaming license, so I'm assuming that you could get by with printing these two on 2 sides of a single page and then just using it as a Trifold. I love the cover art. It's got that kind of zany really colorful, kind of standout kind of thing. If this was, like, think about it. If just this part here, just this part, well, can I select it? Come on, can you let me select it, please? If just this part here were on a stand in the old days, I would have taken a look at it. I would have taken a look at it. So, for as long as anyone can remember, a great swirling hurricane has raged unabated in the middle of the open ocean, and at its center, a lonely metal island. But now, for reasons unknown, the hurricane is rapidly approaching the coast, threatening the lives of everyone in its path. This adventure is for 4 to 6 adventures of level 9. Do we have a map with it? No, this is a mapless thing. It's simply an area-based adventure. So you've got the storm, and you've got to traverse the storm. Better off using this as a narrative moment than a mechanical challenge, which I would disagree with, but I guess everybody has their own style. And it's basically a sailor background or proficient with vehicles, water, then they can actually make some noise. Otherwise, you just kind of wing it and play it narratively. Area 1, the Golem Guardian. You've got a gargantuan automaton that's plodding forward. So it's like a moving island made of black metal and resembling a humanoid with a huge aurochs head upon its shoulders. So similar to the artwork, except black instead of red. When it detects the PCs, its eyes glow red and it begins firing a rhythmic barrage of ocular lasers at the PC's approaching ship. Lasers function as sunbeam with a range of up to a mile. If the PC is piloting the ship, they can make an intelligence check at DC 15 to get the ship out of the laser's path for one turn, thus ensuring that no one takes any damage. How many times? Like, if it's up to a mile, that's still quite a ways for a shipborne party to go without getting hit. The Automaton is an iron golem with the following changes. Its size is gargantuan, it has 300 hit points, and has lightning absorption. It is continuously being healed by the lightning coursing through it, making it nearly invulnerable in a conventional battle. Which is where you think outside the box and you cast like protection from lightning or something on it. I guess that doesn't exist in 5th edition. They have protection from energy in 5th edition, right? I've stopped playing 5th edition for the most part, well, except for like I've got like 2 games going. One of the patron games is still 5th edition, and I've got my Tuesday game, which is 5th edition, but barely 5th edition. It's like 5th edition. It's like an OSR game using the basic 5th edition mechanics. Alright, just above the golem's weight is a platform. How convenient! And a sealed door leading aside. This will be the PC's probable point of entry. But here's the thing. How high is the platform compared to the water? Alright, so yeah, it's waist high. So yeah, they were kind and put the door just at the water level. So aside from the waves, you can just sail the ship right up to it. It may crash with it, but you can sail right up to it. PCs gain entry to Area 2 by forcing open the door, Strength Athletics DC 20, or by some other means. Once inside, the door will close behind them. Good. This area is crisscrossed with metal walkways inside the golem. It is illuminated by the intermittent flickering of lightning energy carried through the huge conductor cables and full of the scream of heavy machinery. Arachnitechs, tiny arachnid constructs, skitter along every surface, performing ongoing maintenance to keep everything running smooth. The ancient golem's name. As the PCs investigate, they will soon be met by a small automaton carrying a projector, which will broadcast a hologram of Raku, the being responsible for the golem's advance. Using deception and misdirection, she will attempt to lure the PCs to Area 3. If the PCs discover Riku's true intentions and try to convince her of the value of organic life, she'll pretend to have been convinced if the PCs get into Area 3. If it gets the PCs in Area 3, so she'll lie and such to get there. The PCs see through a ploy, the path of central control will take them through Area 3, and when you used to slice it, they're going to Area 3. Which is good, because it's the next in the thing. And this is just samples for Raku. A hologram of a stocky, black-haired, brown-skinned woman wearing a simple long tunic with a long fringed shawl and a woven headband. The look of a servant from a long-dead civilization. Alright. polite and deferential, but insistent, apologizing for the golem's malfunction. Gives you what she knows, but she's hiding. Now, how the PCs are to find this out, I guess, would rely on magic. They're all level 9 after all. And there's her ideal and flaw that that you need to play up for the NPC. So it's pretty much just a full-on NPC. Regardless of how the PCs end up in this area, Raku intends to be their grave. She locks the doors and floods the room with paralytic gas from thick pipes that line the walls. After 1d3 rounds, the gas reaches the PCs. It functions as a whole monster, except it requires Constitution saving throw for every round the PC remains. PCs can hold their breath to automatically pass the saving throw, but when they run out of air, they have disadvantage on saves. They will be taking deep breaths. PCs can only hold their breath once. The PCs can force the far door or climb up the ladders inside the gas pipes to Area 4. If one or more PCs are paralyzed, let me see. This actually has a link. I will totally allow that. Animated armor is challenge rating 1, and this group is challenge rating 9. So, yeah. Hey, oh, they're actually asleep. I just noticed you arrived. Good to have you here. Yeah, they're actually being peaceful for once, so that much is good. Yeah, I don't often get to stream without it sounding like a jungle in here, you know? So let's see what else we got here. I need to see if that kind of... Yeah, that resized everything. All right. I was switching that to the other window so I could actually see the chat. Central control room. This is the boss. It's got a 50 by 50 by... It's a 50 by 50 by 50 foot room, also known as a 50 cubic room. It's crossed by metal walkways and pathways. There is still no map, which is good, so I guess you sketch this out on the fly. You got a command module suspended by 6 thick cords. Oh man, yeah. These things don't fly around too much. They play a lot with their the budgies, the parakeets I have. They play a lot with basically I get them toys and then they completely devour them after they get bored with them. And I can always tell when they're having fun with them, because then it's like the toys are pristine up until the point at which they get bored with them, in which case they just rip them apart. And it happens real quick too. It's like, you know, I wish there were some way to tell when they were getting bored of them before they just decided to destroy them, because they look like they're having fun and they're playing with them, and then all of a sudden just boom. It'd save me a lot of money. Could switch them out every so often. Alright, here we go. The command module functions as a flesh golem, except it cannot move or act. Adamantine rods sit in nearby crates, which function as mauls, 2d6 bludgeoning damage. Oh yeah, we got ours. We got our parakeets from a pet store, and they'd already done that. And I think they were actually relatively mature when we picked them up. And it was basically an on-the-fly thing, because my mom, she loves parakeets, so I picked them up so that she would, you know, come along and interact with them. And it didn't quite work out so well, so I ended up basically keeping the parakeets. And she visits them, but she's not... it did not work out as well as I thought it would. You know, she loves the parakeets as long as she doesn't have to take care of them. So that much is good. See, so you basically got 2 shield guardians, which again I think are just a minor annoyance. No, shield guardians are actually CR7, but keep in mind this is for a party of 9th level adventurers, right? So the roughest part is basically trying to destroy this command module while 2 flying shield guardians, CR7 things, move around. So Raku can act through them, but does not take actions as normal, but rather serves as a sort of battlefield randomization. So in effect, this entire adventure, even though it's a 5-room dungeon, it's essentially just a railroad to a single encounter, because it pretty much guarantees that no matter what the party does, they go to Area 3. There's no way around it. So even though Area 3 is a trap room, there's no way around the trap room. So here's the thing. And it leaves the rewards completely to the DM's idea. I don't have a problem with that. I think that this final encounter is actually like decent. It's not going to be super challenging for a party of 9th level characters unless they are really, really kind of low end players. But I feel like this is less an adventure and more just a scripted encounter. Because they got this huge setup, but it's mostly empty. Like you sail into this massive construct, but it's mostly empty except for like one minor combat / trap room that you cannot avoid, and then the boss fight. So even though it is technically a 5-room adventure, it could just be a 1-room adventure, or maybe a 2-room adventure. And that actually is part of what I don't like about the 5-room dungeon design. There's all kinds of people say, "Oh, you need 5 rooms. You need like 1 secret." I forget how it is, like 1 secret, 2 exploration, 2 battle, or something like that. And I don't like that formula because it ends up, a lot of the things designed by it end up basically being like just a single encounter. I need to make an entire video on that sometime. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you have never designed a dungeon before, then the 5-room paradigm is actually useful. But people make the mistake of just assuming that something that is really good for beginners is equally good to do an entire campaign with, including experienced players. And that's not the case. It's not the case. Anyway, that was Hurricane Deathbot. I would say that it's okay, but it's not great. And now I'm looking at the average review. We've got 1 review at a 3-star. Yeah, I'd put it about there. It's like slightly better than mediocre. It's got good writing. It's got a good idea. It could use a little bit fleshed out, even though it is just a 2-page adventure. All right, what do I have next up on the list? Next up is the 0-level rulebook, and I need to make sure this is still free before I go ahead and fire it up. Because sometimes when I get this stuff, they turn it into something that's not free later. Oh yeah, the 0-level rulebook. It's still available for free. It is from Weird Works. It is essentially a way to play 0-level characters in 5th edition, and I will put the link in the chat. And we will go ahead and get the 0-level rulebook up. So first, right off the bat, I love the cover art. You've got your Gibbering Mouther / whatever up there, and you've got your various commoners. I'm actually a fan. I'm a fan of level 0 adventuring, but not so much. Not so much when you're talking about like random chefs and stuff. I like my level 0 characters to be of a type that would put them in adventure. Like you always see these level 0, and part of it is the problem that came from where is it? DCC RPG, where they give you all kinds of occupations and such, and in part from like Warhammer Fantasy, you get all these occupations, but you got to realize that if you're like look at this, you got a dude here that's basically like a clerk. There is no reason why you would put a clerk in any kind of adventurous situation. Yeah, it's level 0 is basically where you play normal people that are forced into adventure, and then they develop classes from there. And I like the idea, but I like there for them to be of a type of character that should be adventuring, you know? Because some characters, like your average banker and such, you're probably not going to be the best adventurer, you know? Like, even if they're forced into it. It's kind of odd, but I guess it works. And as for you being an unexperienced DM and whether somebody's a gooder DM or not, like the best DM, like the way to tell if you're a decent DM or not is if you and your players are having fun. It's not about whether your storyline is epic. It's not about whether it even makes sense. But if you can sit down with a bunch of people and both yourself and your players are having fun, then you're a decent DM, regardless. If either is not having fun, if either you or your players are not having fun, then something's an issue, and either you're going to have to adjust your DM style or the player group. But if you sit down and no matter how goofy your adventure is, no matter what happens, if you don't know the rules or whatever, as long as you and your players are having fun, then that is really what counts, and that's how I tell what a good DM is. Banker would make a good thief. Yeah, I imagine so. I imagine they might. Anyway, let's take a look at this. This is 24 pages. I'm going to skim over it because it looks like it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, 0-level adventurers or commoners. This is your character before they mastered the fighting art, studied to learn how to wield arcane skills, or made pacts with otherworldly creatures for amazing powers. A good early example of a published thing that invokes the 0-level adventuring is AD&D First Edition. I think it's N1. Let me take a look real quick. Let me pop open my list of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons stuff real quick. My quote-unquote list that's not actually just a bunch of PDFs in a folder. Give me a second. I promise you it's not just a bunch of PDFs in a folder. Okay, it was N... It's got to be N something, right? Come on. Oh, they had a Lankmar first edition one? I thought they only had the second. Okay. N4 Treasure Hunt. N4 Treasure Hunt. You basically started as a character with no class, and then through the first adventure, they noted, the DM noted what you did, and then at the end of the adventure, you advanced to first level in a class based on what you did over the adventure. So you got a chance to try out various things. That is how I prefer to run 0-level things, where you don't have like a set class. How they do it in a lot of places, and I don't know how this is going to show you, but in like DCCRPG, it's more like some of the initial professions in like Warhammer or something, where it just gave you background material. All right, you take care, man. I should still be streaming. This is going to take me a while. And it'll always be online later for people to look at later. Anyway, let's take a look at this. Why play a 0-level? Playing a 0-level adventure is an exciting experience. Any wrong move can result in your permanent and messy death. Even right moves can at 0-level. Taking risks means something entirely new, and the risk could mean the end of a character's story. And that another thing I have about 0-level characters is that 0-level campaigns and the use of 0-level campaigns basically replaces what used to be old school first level campaigns. Because old school first level campaigns used to be like, taking risks could mean the end of a character's story. But people like to have them epic, so I understand. So this supplement's going to be basically for 5th level. It deals with a funnel where you throw a bunch of characters into an adventure, and players usually play a couple of different characters and hope at least one survives. I don't want to say that I don't like it because I kind of do the same thing. A lot of times I'll have my even in 5th edition, even starting them at first level in my campaigns, a lot of times I'll have my characters make, or I'll have my players make 2 characters each. And this is why my 5th edition stuff, I often end up with party sizes in like the 8 to 10 range. Because I get 4 to 5 players, and then they make 2 characters each. And they end up with like, 8 to 10 characters in a group. And then I let them use hirelings and such. So we end up with my 5th edition campaigns having like old school style group numbers. Okay, so you create characters. It's more randomized. This one uses more randomization for it, but in order to speed up character creation, which you do need if you're making that many characters. Step 1, you roll up your race rather than accepting it. I've been hit or miss on that, but I can see where it goes. That's more of, I think that's more of a Warhammer thing. I never played 1st edition Warhammer, and I got to be honest, I haven't finished reading the book. I bought it. I mean, I bought it recently. I mean, it's been sitting here, Warhammer Fantasy. I've had it on my shelf for a while. I just never finished reading it. Probably should. I probably should. You go ahead and jot down your racial traits after rolling them. So it's got variations for default, high fantasy, and then human-dominated type games. And if it's just a human, like completely human, you just skip the race table. 0 level racial traits. This tells you which of your racial traits actually manifest at 0th level. Because you don't get all of them, apparently. You get quite a few of them, but not all of them. Dragonborn ancestry table gives you your origin, basically. So far it's pretty similar to just making a 1st level character, but with a more randomized process. There's no point buys, mulligans, or do-overs. We value weird, unusual characters. Yeah, this is another thing, is where you just do a 3d6 in order. And yeah, roll 3d6 in order for strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Add in the racial values and fill in the stat sheet. You may not switch ability scores around, and you must play the roles as they lay, which is awesome. I need to do more games like that. Often, I'll let people switch them on a 2-to-1 basis, like the, believe, Basic Edition let you do. I usually don't do point buy. The other thing I usually do is I'll either do a 3d6 or 4d6, drop the lowest type stat array, and then allow people to re-roll once per character, but then that's mostly when I'm running more heroic kind of campaigns. It's been a long time since I've used 3d6 in order. Not that I don't like it. I do like it, but I find it harder to convince people to play when I use it. You got your standard ability modifiers chart. That's pretty straightforward. You get to roll your hit points. You get a 1d4 plus con mod as a 0th level character. That's pretty par. You get secondary stats. You have a +2 proficiency. I don't even know that I'd give a 0th level character any proficiency bonus. Base armor class is just, this is just basically from the book. By default, you get no proficiency in saving throws. Some occupations may confer a saving throw proficiency, because you do roll for an occupation which serves as your background. There's a good chance your character will not survive very long, so no need to fill in your character's skill modifiers. Yeah. And then you just roll an occupation based on your character's highest ability score. So if your highest ability score is strength, you roll on this chart. It tells you what your character was, tells you your starting coin, tells you any skill proficiencies that you have, gives you a starting weapon, a starting random item, and then what kind of clothes they have, which is pretty par for the curse. You end up with a basic character that has very little to their name. This is something I've seen in OSR games before. It's not a problem. I do like how well-rounded these tables are with 20 for each one. Roll random starting item, just to give them something a little bit extra. That way you get something called, wealth by attrition, where if you get a bunch of characters all going into a dungeon at once, and half of them die, then the rest of them are all of a sudden twice as wealthy. There are some special rules that apply when playing your less than heroic characters. As a zero level PC, you have proficiency of +2. However, you're not proficient in anything except for your proficient in special proficiency. God damn. Fucking my teeth up even more than these. I meant to grab this glass. Yeah, I am badly in need of a dentist. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, as a 0 level PC, you have proficiency +2. You get proficiency in only your profession special proficiency, which is in the chart. Armor proficiency. If you're not proficient with armor or shield you are wearing, you have disadvantage on any ability check, saving throw, or attack roll. However, this effectively makes it so no 0 level characters would ever wear armor. This didn't seem fun, so the purpose of a 0 level character campaign, we are ignoring this rule. I don't know. I'd do it. I'd make them earn that. I'd make them sit there with a disadvantage weight over their head. Weapon proficiency. You can attack it with proficiency with your starting weapon, but attacking with any other weapons means you don't get the bonus. However, several occupations confer proficiency in a type of weapon. In this case, your character is proficient in all weapons of that type, not just your starting weapon. So if you start with, let's say, an herbalist, and they start with a club, that means you're proficient only with that particular club, not with other clubs. Whereas if you are, and I'm looking for one that actually has proficiency in a weapon, if you are proficient in, if you are a mercenary, then you're proficient with simple weapons, all simple weapons, plus the particular short sword that you have. That's not terrible. That's not terrible. With poor stats, it's quite possible that you could do less than 1 damage after making a successful attack. In the case you do less than 1 damage, 0 level, you would do 1 damage instead. I thought that was part of the core rules. Don't the core rules have like a minimum? Like I know in 3rd edition, if you did like less than 1 damage, it was like 1 non-lethal. What are the 5th edition rules for that? I don't know them off the top of my head. Non-magical healing. At level 0, you have 1 hit die, but you may not use it during a short rest. You heal as per normal rules. You gain 1 hit point every 1d4 hours. Resting can still occur to regain some hit points, but healing naturally will happen much more slowly than it does in a regular 5th edition game. For instance, if your group decides to rest for an hour or more, you can roll a 1d4 to determine how many hours it takes to heal 1 hit point. Okay, so you don't even get your standard hit dice. Once a 0 level character reaches 0 hit points, they die. They do not make death saves. You are dead. Go directly to the morgue, whatever. I was going to say directly to jail, but that doesn't really count. Upon completion of your first adventure, you should level up in one class of your choice. In-game, this can come as a reward of training from a nearby king, a powerful artifact, etc., etc. You basically get to finalize your race, pick your class, finalize your ability scores, and you gain 5 extra ability points to distribute as you level up, basically accounting for additional training. And then you convert your background, your starting profession, to a background. And they give you a new background, the Commoner, which gives you basically a pick of proficiencies. Alright. So they give you alternative initiative rules for players and for large parties, because you could have a lot of characters in the party, especially if they all make 4 characters. You get 6 people with 4 characters each, with 24 characters. That's a lot. I've played in a few games with that many, like, full-on fledged characters. Character life expectancy and campaign balance guidelines. You should not have an expectation that any of your characters will make it to the end of the adventure. For this reason, you don't generally need to pull any punches on unlucky characters who fall in. Thing I noticed a lot, people are a lot less careful about the distinction between players and characters. Generally, players can take only 1 or 2 hits before they die. If you're having your players die at the table, that's pretty brutal. That's more hardcore than my games are. To compensate for this, players should have access to 3 to 4 characters in the adventure. Just in case the player, takes 1 or 2 hits. Spreading attacks around. you basically don't focus fire on the players. Fearsome opponents. When a character has 1 hit point, it doesn't matter if they take 1d4 or 14d6 damage for an attack. This means you can throw some very big, very scary monsters at the level 0s. And as long as the creatures have an extremely high armor class or hit point pool, the level 0s should be able to overcome the challenge. That is true, and I use that actually for level 1 characters as well. If your level 1 characters are going to die in 1 hit anyway, as long as they got fair dues to hit back, you can throw some fair stuff at them. If the player finds themselves out of characters, or if there's a total party wipe, it's quite easy to add in common or reinforcements to practically any adventure. That is true with very low level, with level 0 and level 1 characters. Adding additional races, you just add them to the charts, and it gives you ideas for picking which traits they get at 0th level. And you can use level 1 and this is basically. A lot of this stuff is from, there we go, a DCC, a RPG adventure. That's exactly where a lot of these rules came from, or with the adaptation. So they give you some ideas to convert DCC 0-level adventures to this system. And there's no luck in 5th edition, so it just gives you ways around it. Gives you the starting ages, or rather the ages for each individual. So you can make characters that are not just young adults. Give you random starting items, and then guidelines for converting DCC RPGs. All in all, now understand that this 0-level rulebook, although it is available separately, was part of like an adventure for 0-level 5th edition characters from Weird Works. I think that it's a good. I don't have any problems with it. It is well written. I like the selection of artwork. It's well laid out, and it is basically a conversion of the DCC RPG 0-level character rules. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're good rules. So yeah, the 0-level 0-level rulebook. It's pretty good, all in all. I like it. So what's next? I gotta see if this is still up. Again, I gotta check something out real quick. Is this still... Does this still pay what you want? Yes, this still is. It's called Warlock Joe's Dungeon for Babies. And it's sitting at a middle of the road. It's also from Watcher DM, same person that did, or same group that did the first one I took a look at this time. Warlock Joe's Dungeon for Babies. It's another Trifold thing. Looks like it's another 5. Yeah, it is a 5-area dungeon, but this time there's a map. So it actually shows you an incredibly linear dungeon, but it's got a map. It doesn't need one, and in fact it needs one even less than the Golem one did, but it actually has a map. Again, I'm not entirely sold on the 5-room dungeon paradigm. It's great for introductory. It's great for introductions and for creating your first dungeon, but not so good for later ones. This one is an introductory dungeon for level 1 PC, so it has its place here. Warlock Joe, aka Josiah Darksoul, not his real name, because of course, is an epic level magic user who has transcended some such paltry things as life and death in space and time. Now he amuses himself for building dungeons and luring adventurers and monsters into it for fun. He's concerned about the youths. He's worried in these changing times that the next generation of adventurers will come of age without ever having set foot into a dungeon, much less one containing a dragon. He aims to ensure this grim future never comes to pass by creating an introductory dungeon for 4 level 1 PCs. So yeah, this dude believes that everybody should experience a dungeon, and he makes one. Might be considered a man after my own heart. But let's see what his dungeon entails. You got an entrance, a forest clearing with an ancient tree. It has a sign reading Warlock Joe's Dungeon for Babies. A simulacrum of Warlock Joe welcomes the PCs to the wonderful world of fantasy adventure. And explains the goal is to traverse the dungeon and vanquish the treasure-hoarding dragon. Not really sold on it so far. As they go in, he'll give a Dungeoneer's pack to any PC who doesn't already have one. Okay. One of the packs contains a map of the dungeon. Is 4 squares connected by a straight line, reading Battle, Negotiation, Trap, Boss, and Treasure, which is exactly the 5-room dungeon thing, which is another reason I don't particularly like it. Once they're inside, Warlock Joe rolls a boulder in front of the entrance, sealing them in. So you got 2 goblins and a piece of meat, up to 1 diseased rat to toughen it up. If the monster spot the PC, the diseased goblins charge straight at them. The goblins run to cover and use nimble escape to hide. They shoot the PC with their short bows. While hidden, their attacks have advantage. That's not a bad intro. Relatively easy CR, some basic tactics. Lets people know they should do more than just run and attack. Area 2, Skeleton Knight. Is your role-playing thing. An intelligent skeleton knight and his warhorse skeleton reside in this tomb, hidden in the coffin. They guard the passage that goes further in. They are depressed because they have been waiting here for centuries and have not been called into service for the fabled skeleton war. Until then, they guard the passage. They won't let the PCs continue, but do not attack without provocation. They will defend themselves, but will not chase the PCs or kill them. The PCs can convince the skeleton knight, and the skeleton war has already begun. And his warhorse will happily leave, allowing the PCs to continue. In other words, lie to him. Got a trap corridor, a trick. It's a sloping corridor with 2 kobolds hidden, just to watch what happens. There are 3 traps in this corridor. Halfway down the hall is an uncovered 10-foot deep pit with spikes at the bottom. A pressure plate near the entrance will trigger a rolling sphere trap, which begins to roll after the PCs. And then there's a second pit that's covered after the first. This right here is the kind of trap I loved. I am unimpressed with this so far, but this is like exactly my vibe of trap. That's awesome. It's kind of arbitrary and kind of a fuck you kind of thing, but I like it. And you got a ring of jumping at the bottom. That's a good magic first level treasure. You got the dragon's lair. You got the 2 kobold trap makers hidden that hide in this room. You got copper pieces all over the place. You got 2 potions of fire resistance and a dragon slayer whip on a pedestal with a note that tells the properties. Okay, that's handy. And then a red dragon wormling, which a red dragon wormling can easily wipe a first level party, but if you give them a dragon slayer whip, then boom. It's good. It only non-melee attack is fire breath, which you cannot use or return. It has only 5 foot of movement while it's locked up. So it's a dragon tied to a post. That's not great. Inside is a crystal. At the base of the Dragon Slayer Whip is a key to the adamantine lock. So you can decide to free the dragon instead, and it'll just leave. So either kill a wormling or let it go. And that's actually a good decision point, even as goofy as this thing is. That's actually a good decision point, because red dragons are by their nature chaotic evil. I don't care what the fuck Wizards Coast says. Red dragons are chaotic evil. There is basically no redeeming them. So you get your choice between freeing a chaotic evil dragon that's eventually going to become big, or killing it while it's tied up, which is also not great. But it's also how you live. And then you get to go out. The Warlock Joe's Simulacrum greets them, asks them what they liked, basically gives them a survey. You get a random magic potion. If the PCs died, he'll animate them. That's funny. And then immediately bring them back to true life. And then, if the PCs freed the red dragon, it will emerge from the dungeon and breathe fire on the simulacrum, melting it, and give them a flaming sword. You get, like, really nice gear for a first level party, regardless. Yeah, I'm not sure about this. I mean, I gotta admit, this is a really stupid one. It's well written. The encounters are okay, but it's like stupid. And the only thing that I'm not sure I like it. This is where the 5-room dungeon really kind of falls flat here for me. The only thing that redeems it is this trap right here. That was Warlock Joe's Dungeon for Babies, which I expected to like a bit more than I did. Let's see what else is next. What else is next? I got a couple more 5th edition things here. This one's a goofy one. I don't know how long this one's been in my list. Give me a second. Let me see if it's still up. Curse of the Briomancer from Mark Baumgartner. Curse of the Briomancer. It is a pay-what-you-want product. And I will put the link in the chat. Okay, so it comes with some maps. It is a 17-page thing. It has some maps, but they're mostly like... let's see if I can't get another one here. Give me a minute. That's not what I want. But yeah, those are the maps on it. Oh my god. I was gonna ask, I was trying to get this thing to show the photo. I gotta find a way to get it to do this. Nope. Huh. Okay, that's not working. I'll have to delete this. Delete. Okay, well apparently I still can't get that to show. I gotta play that around with that sometime. Get it to show like images. Alright, so the Curse of the Briomancer, it does have some maps. They're not terribly good ones, but they get the job done. They look like they're done in MS Paint. So you've got an adventure hook. Goes into the caves. You get a big cave and then the center of the cave, which I guess is all in there. Then the Briomancer's lair. Oh yeah, this is for this is from Mark Baumgartner for 5th edition, of course. Since a rock slide a few weeks ago revealed the entrance to a mysterious cave, the livestock of a small village is under attack by swarms of monstrous creatures. But not all is as it seems. Will the group of adventurers be able to survive the dangers that await them, and will they be able to stand against the monsters of the Briomancer? So this is basically a one-shot, goofy adventure. Okay. The adventure is designed to be completed in a single session. Party level can range between 3rd and 7th level. So it's for starting characters, but they have to be 3rd to 7th level, whatever. It can be placed anywhere in your world. It begins with a party hearing rumors of beasts that feed on the local livestock at night, but so far no one has seen the monsters. If the party is unwinding the local tavern, it doesn't take long before they are approached by an elderly man. Gerald Shortleg is a polite elderly gentleman in his 60s who owns a local butchery. He is wearing simple clothing and has a slight limp. Upon closer inspection, it can be seen that his left leg is a bit shorter than his right one. He is wearing a prosthetic leg since he lost his leg many years ago to a crazed bull that has torn it off. Recently, Gerald has lost a few cows at night that had been mauled to death and is now searching for someone that can help him deal with the problem. He has never seen what actually happened at night due to him always arriving too late to the scene. Every time the only thing left was a bunch of bones and a lot of flattened grass. He claims that big chunks of his cows have been torn off and must be dragged away. Although he himself has never seen what attacked his cows, he says that one of the local farmhands named Martin Trent keeps talking about how he fended off a monster 2 nights ago. Gerald takes this story with a grain of salt since he still lost one of his cows the same night. He is willing to pay the party up to 200 gold to find and root out the source of his problem. And they can persuade him up to 300 gold, they can talk to Martin, he can be found behind the tavern, and he'll tell them how he fended off some gruesome monsters 2 nights ago. He's a boy of 16 years of age, with blonde hair wearing ragged clothing. He lives with his family near the edge of town and earns some money on the side by helping out the local farms. He does not know much more about these attacks than anyone else and just wants to seem like a hero because he is unhappy about his position as a farmhand. The night of the attack, Martin was indeed out in the field on his way home when he heard a cow in distress. In contrast to his story of heroic deeds, he didn't actually fight the monsters, but instead hid it inside a nearby bush. From his hiding spot, he didn't get a very clear view of what attacked the cow, other than it seemed to be a swarm of some small bug-like creatures. Oh, that's terrible! Okay, either way, no matter which version of the story Martin tells the party, you should point them in the direction of the cave in which the monsters that attacked the cow have disappeared. So far, it's pretty goofy. I do have a mild problem, and that's the writing needs a little work. The editor in me is screaming at this writing. It's not even terrible, it just needs a little bit of work. Like there's misplaced commas here and there, some odd wordage, verbiage, whatever. Investigating the cow. Should the party decide to investigate the carcass of the most recent attack, they will find it near the edge of the forest where Gerald has disposed of it. The carcass is in bad shape since some of the woodland critters have already helped themselves to a meal. Also, some of the bigger parts seem to have been torn off, probably by the attacker. You get a medicine check to reveal a number of small bite marks on the bones. Alright. The entrance to the cave that Martin has mentioned can easily be found by the description. It's only a few minutes into the fields of Gerald, on which he keeps his cows. On arrival, you see a small cliffside, what can only be described as a rock slide. So you get an investigation check to open the little rock slide. A medicine check to find out that the blood is cow blood, because there's blood on the rocks. You just get a cave entrance. After walking through the winding pathways of the tunnel, the party finally finds themselves in a small cavern approximately 120 feet in diameter. The cavern seems to be a natural formation as well, although the air seems to be much drier than one would expect from a cave like this. Stalactites are hanging from the ceiling. We'll see a small hut right in the center of the cavern. Surrounded by fields apparently once used for farming. How underground you have fields, I don't know. Most of the cavern appears to be stone, but the floor has been loosened and filled with earth around the hut. A dead tree can be seen as well near the front side of the hut. You get an investigation check on the hut that somebody used to farm the cave. And an investigation check reveals the tree to be an apple tree that apparently died due to lack of sunlight. Yeah, how does the sun get down there? The hut itself is rather small, no bigger than 20 foot on a side. So basically a farmer's hut with basic furniture. 4 skeletons can be found. There's no trace of their clothes, and most of them still hold rusted swords and shields in their hands. And a medicine check reveals a small number of bites on the bones of whoever these 4 unfortunate souls were. So, similar to the cow. So got a big barricade down in an adjacent tunnel. Another skeleton can be found buried here. The same bite marks on that skeleton. So this was like an underground farm. How that happens, I don't know. Small crossroads on the path ahead. You've got a southern tunnel that is blocked off. You can try and loosen the rubble. Upon gaining entrance to this cave, the party sees a small room that appears to be another natural formation. A few wooden crates are standing in one corner, together with a makeshift bed. Leaning against the wall, they can see an old mummified corpse with ragged clothing, holding onto a light crossbow and a rusty dagger. So he's got a diary. Basically, he's talking about fighting, screams. They got all of them. I still have supplies for weeks. They should have listened to me. I told them not to let him anywhere close to the village. Why don't they listen to me? This dude was trapped there and basically died of thirst. That's terrible. Kind of gruesome for an. I mean, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like how it's done. Where you've got he basically killed himself because he didn't die of thirst. He checked out when he ran out of supplies. That's brutal, man. For a joke adventure, yeah, that's rough. You got underground fields with dead wheat. How are they growing things underground? And this is where they finally encounter the monsters of the Briomancer. If the party took the northern tunnel, they will end up right in the fields. Every party member with passive perception over 10 should be able to notice some slight movement between the dead stalks of wheat. At first, the creations of the Briomancer will try to keep a slight distance to the party, trying to use the wheat as cover. I like that, even if it's dead wheat that's underground. Whatever. It's only meant to give the party a first taste of balancing the encounter. Note that this encounter is only meant to give the party the first taste of what is yet to come. Depending on the party level, you can use either 2 swarms of bread or 1 swarm of old bread. Depending on light levels and how close you want to play your cards, the first description of the bread you give the party might be closer to what Martin already told them. In this case, describe them as more bug-like, legless creatures with an almost chitin-like looking shell. But then when they get there, it's freaking bread. Look. Animated bread. Elder loaf. Mother loaf. Jesus. And they're not even that high level. They're CR4, CR2, CR2, CR1. What level is this made for? Didn't I just say that it was made for like 3rd to 7th level? Okay, so that's a wide level range, I'll admit that. Go through a dead forest. They're basically stalked by like animated bread throughout this cave. There's a little island in the cave. Around the skeleton are several burn marks. Near the skeletons, the party will see notice a duffel bag with alchemist fire and 3 flasks of oil. Man, this is an outright like a horror adventure, except with a goofy premise. I could make this, like if I ran this, I could run this like a proper horror adventure. It's an adventure about a madman who is animated bread. And yet, you can easily run this as a survival horror adventure. I feel like I should do that sometimes. Like as a one-shot. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the rest of this. Alright, this is where Leonard Church tells about the arrival of Werner von Bratt. Ha ha ha. Who has been making bread. So there's an entire village under there. So like you got a village and outlying farms in a series of caves underground. And animated bread like chases the party around. As stupid as this is like a B movie so bad it's good type horror, man. You got a nest of bread. They reproduce like bugs apparently. The Briomancer's lair. So they've got the mother loaf, which is the one that keeps making bread. And the Briomancer himself is dead, I think. Most of them read like the notes and sketches of an insane person, but reading through them, the party can determine the intentions of the Briomancer. His main research focused on self-replicating food that would otherwise be difficult to farm underground. The last few pages elaborate on how he has finally found a way to get the bread to replicate, by giving the bread life itself and letting it breed. All that he needs is a soul. So whose soul did he use? Oh no! Behind the mill of the Briomancer, the party will find a shallow grave, about the right size for a child. A small cross made out of 2 branches still stands in the dirt. Yeah. So there's like indications that this dude went insane. He may have given the bread the soul of a child. Doesn't say whose child. And then he never actually shows up. Man, this is kind of messed up. But at the same, this is like late night B movie type horror. Man, I could do that. I could get into that. That was Curse of the Bread. I thought that was actually decent. It's got an average rating on Drive-Thru-RPG, but I actually think it deserves better than average. It's goofy, it's stupid, but and the maps look like they were done in MS Paint. But it's actually I think there's something to work with there. There's something that can be worked with there. All right, next I'm going to look at Amric of Bergothia from Zeal's Addy. It is part of the Free City of Vadashar line. I believe that there's been another one. Lore of the Giant Kings is also from that one, so I might take a look at both of them. I think there might be more laid out. I'll put a link in the chat. It is a pay-what-you-want product. Zeal's Addy creates role-playing and board gaming content for tabletop games, including campaign streams, YouTube, Dungeon Master, and world-building tutorials, events, and published content. I need to do more of that stuff. I like other YouTubers that do it, but I feel like I need to do some. If I'm mostly what I do is critique. I'm gonna say this. I have eyeballed this. This is supposed to be like inspired by stuff like Conan and stuff. Prince, Rogue, Raider, Barbarian, Amric of Bergothia. And I like that kind of thing. Alright, this one is authored by Cliff Dunn. Creative direction, graphic design, layout by Scott Coventry at Zeal's Addy. Alright. Some artwork, 2015 Dean Spencer, used with permission. Alright. Some of the art from this publication was sourced from the collection Chamomile Has Illustrations. Chamomile has a project, and there's so much stuff from that I've covered from that, and I feel like I should take a closer look at some point, because they come out with all kinds of stuff. It's really neat to see that much production, but at the same time, I haven't taken a deep look at any of it. Alright, so we got this free city of Vadashar. It's going to be a setting. It's a population center located in the heart of the Valley of Khalif, the most fertile and resource-rich valley in the world of Zul. Nestled between the expansionistic Kuranian Empire to the west and the mysterious kingdoms of the Far East, Vadashar enjoys a privileged position of influence and wealth. Okay, and this basically covers the background of the free city of Amrik. Or no, the free city of Vadashar. Amrik is a multifaceted NPC who puts the swords in sword and sorcery. He can be encountered during any of the stages of his long and exciting adventuring career as a youthful Burgothian sea reaver, raiding the coast of Ferdun, searching the deep seas for rich prizes to capture, or carousing in Zaragossan ports, leading the band of thieves to wealthy spoils in the shadows of Vadashar, fighting undead and magical creatures in the jungles of Goma and the desert pyramid tombs of Kemet, guarding the vast Khalif Valley, lands of Prince Kurad, or commanding a company of elite mercenaries during the dismal days of the veteran military occupation of Balkan. Amrik is a loyal friend, but doesn't give his friendship easily. Although he isn't quick to take offense, once he is offended, he makes a dangerous foe. At whatever stage of his life the characters meet him, Amrik is never one who gladly suffers the company of fools. This is directly that's just like Conan with a name filed off and a new one stamped on. Amrik, barbarian, reaver, mercenary, was born into a fierce clan of warriors and sea raiders who live along the fertile northwest coast. His father, Strom, was a warrior and ranger of the Saxeni, a southern Burgothian tribe that had been engaged in centuries-long blood feud with the Arvari, the largest and most powerful of the warring Burgothian tribes. All right. So his father was a sole survivor that was captured and compelled into service. A band of marauding ogres laid waste to the villages, killing many of the clan's strongest warriors. The Arvari king offered the headstrong Strom a choice to live out his life in service to his conquerors or to join them in defending against the rampaging monsters. So Strom basically killed the ogres and was freed from servitude. Became the preeminent ranger and warband leader, and eventually the tribe's leader. So Amrik, born to an outsider who basically became the tribal leader, had basically big shoes to fill. He was raised a prince, basically. So yeah, he was a barbarian prince. Maybe a little bit higher. He didn't have the whole Wheel of Pain kind of experience that it looked like Conan and such had. Had a lot of adventures, apparently. That's basically his background. You got stats for him at CR 13, but no stats for like other versions. Alright, so this is basically a Conan ripoff. It's a good one. It's well written. It's interesting. And you could select worse source material. That's not bad. It's a good classic sword and sorcery kind of thing. That's Amrik of Burgothia. It's basically a single NPC and an extensive background. And then Lore of the Giant Kings, also pay what you want. Same setting. And we're just going to breeze through this one. I put the link in the description. or in the chat, and we'll open up Lore of the Giant Kings as soon as I can find the thing. There we go. Zeal Zaddy, Lore of the Giant Kings. What do we got here? When Gods Walk the Earth. It's 12 pages. You've got the background in the free city of Vadashar, which is the same exact thing as it had in the prior one, but it just features a different aspect of the setting for the rest of it. Giant Kings are linked to the ancient past of Zul, a distant time when magic was in its primal infancy and when lost sciences were discovered and practiced. As a legendary race, the Giant Kings were a bridge to the dark times when chthonic Lovecraftian-style horrors ruled the night, terrifying, subjugating, and consuming the proto-races of the megacontinent. Okay. The Giant Kings ushered in the dawn of a new day of enlightenment, when the first elves and humans emerged into a world of innocence, or so goes the tale. Alright, in truth, no one knows who the Giant Kings were, along with their true aims. For instance, 1,000 years ago, the Zulian natural philosopher Zeb Tehepilon of Andos suggested that the race of Zavoas were originally specimens of the former hyena species whose bodies were tortuously warped into their present form, etc., etc. The Ancient Ones, the fall of the Yuan-Ti and the dawn of the sentient races. So, again, this setting has ancient serpent men in its distant past, which, again, were something common in the Sword and Sorcery League time. I think inspired by the Lovecraftian race of Yig, so to speak. So they had the servitor races. We got the Giant Kings, the description of them. They are basically giants who ruled the world after the fall of the Snake Man. So you've got adventure hooks. Long before the venerable city-state became the mercantile center of Zul, Mardik established and maintained its prosperity through a vast trading network. So that it's a predecessor to the free city of Vadashar thousands of years prior. Great mountain apes guarding an ancient city full of gold. Gee, where have I heard that one before? Or wait, no, that's not a bunch of them. That's just one of them. So this dude says he knows where this ancient city is, and it turns out to be a giant ape, giant mountain ape with a cave full of treasure. And that treasure is relatively extensive. Well, it's not huge. It's just got a bunch of weapons and such in it. A bunch of weapons and money. That's not a bad adventure. It's not a bad adventure hook for just a single encounter. Lord Tremalkes is the richest and yet least popular nobleman in the free city of Vadashar. The last living scion of an ancient noble house of the Khalif Valley is distantly related to the house of Dalavas, the family of Prince Karad. Vadashar's patrician and owns much of the city's best real estate. So what's this do? He recently had the inspired idea to organize a grand tour of the sites around the valley that are associated with that lost race of the Giant Kings, that is. So it's basically looking through ruins of Giant Kings with a link to another product of the Lord in question. We got the star map on a tablet. This is kind of hit or miss. So the Giant Kings is a more nebulous addition to this setting, and I kind of like it. In fact, this entire setting, I kind of like it because it does harken back to classic Sword and Sorcery. I might have to look more into this. This Free City of Vadashar setting. Keep an eye on it. I'll keep an eye on it, see if there's like a catch-all. And I know time is going on. I'm gonna look at this next one. Let me see this one real quick. This one is the OSR guide to playing 5th edition, which includes a playtest module. It's by Pocket Jacks Comics, and I think it's actually supposed to be like a 0-level funnel, which we've already been over a 0-level rules just a little bit ago, so we'll have to see how this one goes. and see if I can open it. 0 level, no, this is an OSR guide to playing 5th edition modules. Palace of the Golden Princess, the OSR guide to playing 5th edition. Includes a module for level 0 characters, Blood of the Baneful Banemire. You got enough bees in there. Like the art. It's classic. A module for 0 level characters, which, when you combine it with the old school essential stuff, or not the old school essential, when you combine it with the 0th edition guidebook I just covered, might be useful. This book grew out of the old school renaissance that started to take root in the 2000s when players proposed using Wizards of the Coast's generous open gaming license for Dungeons & Dragons, not to produce products for the then 3rd edition game, but to return to prior editions. The authors take their specific inspiration from the first module written by a woman, the first official TSR module, I might add, because there were actually modules. I know this is hard to believe that were unofficial, that were written by women before the Palace of the Silver Princess. Not to detract from the Palace of the Silver Princess. I still think that's a pretty solid module. Unfortunately, TSR management recalled this edition a mere 72 hours after release due to its racy content. They demoted Miss Wells and assigned Tom Moldwai to rewrite the module, which they reissued with a green cover. Virtual discussion of the adventure discussed the rewrite, and few have ever seen the original in PDF. I think I have before. And if I remember right, I didn't think it was that bad, but then again, I'm not exactly what you might call a Puritan. So, the world presented by Miss Wells' original module used a fair amount of BDSM imagery. The adventure begins in a local municipality dominated by a fantasy queen who had relegated males to second-class status. Within the dungeon, the players will certainly encounter the illusions of the Decapus, which, complete with artwork by Laura Rosloff, presents a woman bound hand and foot surrounded by a group of 9 men who menace her for her amusement. Yeah, I can see where that would not fly in the 80s. I can see why that would not fly in the 80s. And I can see where that wouldn't fly today. I find it interesting where it's got, according to Kotaku's 2017 interview with Stephen Sullivan, the original module editor and friend of the author, who goes on to it, and for another place and another time would probably been just perfect. That another place and another time is from like the late 1990s through the early to mid 2000s. Nowadays it probably wouldn't fly either, at least not in a major sense. Alright, so now this basically takes those sorts of imagery and goes forward. When the player decisions matter and the risk of failure in gameplay can determine the fate of characters, the adventure holds higher stakes for players. Absolutely. Unfortunately, a mountain of lore and Baroque systems vary the OSR gaming experience. Not really. Not really. Only if you're talking about specifically the early TSR stuff. People dislike the negative consequences of their own choices. Absolutely. For fear of angering players, modern writers and game designers craft their modules, adventures, and game systems intended to provide players assured victory. Which, I agree, a lot of them do. I don't, and it has cost a couple TPKs of my time, but I absolutely agree that most adventures are designed with the idea that the players are going to win. I design my adventures with the idea that the players could win. Not even that they're probably going to win, just that the winning is a possibility. And you know what? More often than not, they actually win. We prefer tasks where failure is a real possibility, for only then will the win mean something. Absolutely. Basic expert rules, so it takes remarkably few 5th edition rules changes to accommodate an OSR style. That is true. Number 1, gain experience only by acquiring treasure, 1 experience per gold piece value of the Adventurer's Hall. I don't usually do this, however, I did this. My Goblin Gears campaign was basically a stealth-based campaign with 2 players. And I awarded experience for treasure because it was all about OSR players stems from the desire to avoid fights. Absolutely true. If they must fight, players should engage when and where the odds favor them. And I found that A lot of times in my general old school games nowadays, people just try to fight anyway, but that's mostly just habit now, born of more modern systems. I need to do one. I need something similar where it's like more stealth based and avoiding combat. Short rests require 10 minutes, long rests a full week. I don't know about that. Because that's even shorter short rests, but longer long rests. But it would match the pulp narrative, make for quick recovery from combat, but then longer term recovery once the adventure is over. I kind of like that idea. I do it a little bit different. I use just the grim and gritty rules from the Dungeon Master's Guide for healing, but I can see where this would absolutely work. Only fighters, paladins, and their related subclasses may wield magical swords. Only clerics, wizards, and their related subclasses may use wands and staves. I don't know about that. I actually prefer characters to be able to use everything, but then I prefer to make things very rare, basically. And it requires a lot more work than just simply restricting items to do that. But I can see where that would make something feel a little bit older school. No death saves. You die at 0 hit points. Replacement characters enter the game at level 1. I like that. I mean, I wouldn't use that for mine because my adventurers are already a little bit on the deadly side. They're deadly enough that even death saves don't save people. And that's partially because I tend to set up encounters so that if somebody goes down, it can be difficult getting to them in order to stabilize them. And I do not hesitate to have monsters burn a turn ending somebody that's gone down. But if you're doing an OSR experience, this would absolutely do it. Make it harder to see the dungeon doors that are stuck for players spring freely from monsters. I'm doing this in an AD&D 2nd edition game. I'm using like the old school open doors and stuff for everything, and then monsters can just go through them. And I found it really does change the tone. Just that simple thing changes the tone of a dungeon so much. Absolutely so much. It really does. So make the light spell 1st level, make continual flame 3rd level. This is basically all about maintaining the darkness of a dungeon. I like that idea. And it makes it a resource which must be managed. I like that idea. Remove skills. Yeah, it's already in the DMG. You can just use raw ability checks instead of skills. I'm hit or miss about that. Although I do like... I do like the idea that players should more think about what they want to do rather than like a menu, like pick from a menu. Welcome back. As you can see, I'm actually on the last of the 5th edition things. The next one's the OSR things, even though this one's OSR in 5th edition. Random encounters occur on D6 roll, resulting in 6+ after modifiers. I do random encounters occurring on a 1 D6, but that works too. Either way, it makes them more common. During character creation, generate stats by rolling 3d6 once in each statistic order. That's the 3d6 in order. I need to do more with that. I honestly do, because even in OSR things, I usually use 4d6, drop the lowest. I need to do an adventure that is like both hyper deadly and statistically neutral in terms of just rolling 3d6 instead of more heroic heroes, just to see if it changes the mindset of the players. So all of them make more combat more dangerous and encourage the player creatively to find ways to avoid it. And this needs to change things for the DM too. Opponents don't always attack. I try not to do this, but it usually ends up with the opponents attacking. Because what happens is that I actually have a lot of monsters and such and in other things that when the players come up to them, and this is a 5th edition thing, it makes them especially bad. but the monsters will meet the players, and invariably the players will attack first and force combat. And I do have monsters that will attack no matter what. They're usually rarer, but my players think that they're every one, because it always happens that the one time that they encounter a monster and decide to back off and not fight, that's the one that is already aggro and will fight them. So I kind of wish that my players would back off a bit more often, just to show that not all things have to be fought. They also have morale and flee. I have my monsters flee, but 5th edition makes it super easy to chase monsters down. So a lot of times when I'm using monsters that flee, they end up dying anyway because my players chase them down and kill them. I like 3d6 in order, only because it gets people to play classes they wouldn't normally. Exactly. I love doing that. It does make it much more random, though. Someone could roll multiple ones in a row. I've seen that before. Dude, one of my favorite... Well, not one of my favorite, but one of my favorite stories... One of my classic stories is I played a dwarf, and I did the 3d6 in order in someone else's campaign, and I rolled like a 3 charisma, right? And this was before I decided on a dwarf. And when I rolled that 3 charisma, I decided to play the dwarf specifically to get a 2 charisma. Like, I saw that 3 that I rolled in charisma, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm gonna play the dwarf and drop it down to 2. It was fun while it lasted. Wasn't a great character. I think the highest stat I rolled on that character was like a 12. But it was great. But yeah, I love seeing whether how many people would play classes that they don't normally, if they have to. Even if I do 46, drop the lowest, but make that in order too. Even then, that gives them incentive to play classes that they normally wouldn't. You know. So you've got a mini adventure that follows. I agree with creating the OSR mindset, and although I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that's presented in this particular volume in terms of making it seem more OSR, it's more along the lines of this is not something that I would do, not that I think that the rule is bogus. A lot of these rule changes in here are absolutely would have the effects that are mentioned. I just personally would not do them. I would personally use an alternate thing that does almost the same thing. But that's not to say that these are bad decisions. They're okay decisions. They're just different from what I would do. An old school session 0. A modern custom has emerged for many RPG groups to get together and discuss the game with the GM while creating their characters. This enhances party optimization, and oftentimes you construct your characters to meet the needs of the party. The OSR alternative, a funnel designed to supplant the often boring task of character creation with an adventure instead of taking place before the players pick a class. I'm going to give some pushback here. The modern session 0 is not something I do, and it's for a lot more than just optimizing the party and such. If it was just that, then sure, I would do like session 0s all the time. But the modern session 0 is for about more than that, and I actually don't do session 0s myself a lot of times. I will do because the modern formal session 0 often has you discussing things regarding the adventure, what to avoid, that kind of thing. And I don't do that, and it's not because I don't think it's a good idea. It's because my players, I've talked to them one-on-one beforehand already. So a lot of the things that a modern session 0 would come up with, beyond just creating characters and such, are things that I've already talked to my players, and if they have an issue with it, and it's something I want to run, then I just don't invite them. And I'm actually glad to be in a position where I can do that and still get a full group. If you have a more limited pool of players, then asking somebody whether or not you need to avoid something in the game or whatever, and then changing it for them is a more acceptable. I think it's more acceptable because if you've got a limited group, anything that's going to get you to play is going to be good. But if you're like me and you've got multiple like players that you can mix and match for different, like if I want to run horror, if I want to run a horror game and I want to run like just a kick in the door and smash things game, I have groups of people that I can specifically pick for that. And generally speaking, this creating a character to meet the needs of the party actually falls by the wayside just due to the group that I pick. But if you've got a more limited party, then absolutely this could do. Using a funnel adventure for it, I haven't tried that. I will admit that I don't use funnel adventures. Like specifically as funnel adventures. I do encourage big parties, but I actually treat my entire campaign as a funnel adventure quite strictly. So this one just has everybody create 3 to 5 characters, level 0 characters basically. Give them some basic starting equipment. This is similar. This is like a stripped down version. This creating 0 level characters is a stripped down version of the what is it, the 0 level rulebook that I covered earlier tonight. I gotta be honest, either one is gonna be okay, because if I'm looking at this, and a lot of this is very compatible. The 1d4 hit points, the 3d6 in order. You get to select a race for each character, but then you pick a background. In the 0 level, they were more stripped down backgrounds. Either one could work. This one is just faster. It also gives you slightly less limited characters. And then it goes directly into the adventure. Queen Erika rules a magic-rich delta of Alluvia and demands the blood of a sacrificed angel currently possessed by a nefarious wizard named Archimedes to be used as a magical reagent. The seneschal, it's spelled out, misspelling, editor, informed the local duchess, who informed a baroness in the east. Having more pressing matters disciplining a particularly disobedient male servant, she handed off to the mayor. Mayor Brinksman, a broken and miserable man, called for vagrants and other never-do-wells. This provides the background for the level 0 characters tasked with Angel's Blood retrieval. In addition to serving the glory of the Queen, each character will receive a 20 gold, a well-made weapon or piece of armor, along with a fancy doublet. The characters must contend with a demonic cultist, a vicious mercenary and lizard folk, Northmen that seek to animate a great totem and a family of lycanthropes. So you get a bunch of 0 level characters rounded up off the street. That actually makes a lot more sense in terms of getting them into the group. You get your 0 level characters. You've got a gentle mist in the marsh that reduces visibility to a 60-foot, which brings to mind the idea of using the vision and light as a resource that was mentioned earlier in this product. I like that internal consistency, because that way you can do it outside rather than just purely in the dungeon. Magic enchantment. While physically on the road, people are immune to disease, cannot take damage, and succeed at all saving throws. About a vial being some kind of magic, except it's not. You get a basic handout of the East Road. You got your encounter map. Is that the same road? Yeah, that's the same road as in that map. It's just rendered differently. Okay. Alright, each one of these goes to an encounter area. It's kind of janky, but that works. You got module conventions. Basically tells you to abandon skill checks, but there are skill checks in there in case you still use skills. Background being a evil queen that has sent people into or to deal with this evil wizard Archimedes, and I suspect he's probably not going to be as evil as you think, considering it's an evil queen that sent you after him. Gives you the background offering 500 gold to the return of any corpses you find of the noble women that went out there earlier. And if you fail, then prepare for death or worse. I'm not going to go in depth because I'm already over an hour into this stream, and I'm not even halfway through the stuff I'm going to cover. This entire area could be skipped by the party. Does not relate to their given objective. Still, treasure awaits if you go across. I like that optional adventures. You got a decrepit gatehouse around there. There's a map of the guardhouse. I like the isometric maps, but I always found them difficult to use. Although I found them easy to use, or I found it made it easier to explain things to the party, unless there's something on the near walls that needs to be mentioned too. And the problem is that a lot of the adventures that use the isometric mapping conventions tended to always do it from the same angle. So some rooms would have something in the near wall and the cutaway wall, and you'd have to just get that from the text. It's the only problem I have with those isometric maps. Mind you, just a top-down map of squares in a grid isn't that much. It has the same problems. Okay. We've got a mad humanoid hidden in there in the gatehouse. He's a cultist and service to the demon matron Ati, mistress of obsession. He plans to call upon his goddess to attack the summoner Archimedes. Again, someone evil going after this wizard, so I'm suspecting the wizard is not the evil one. We're just messaging someone. Okay. This is actually a decent adventure. Let me fast forward to the very end. No, he's an evil. He's an evil wizard. He's an evil shaman. I was completely expecting for the evil queen to send you after a quote-unquote evil wizard and him turn out to be good. No, he's evil too. Okay. Archimedes demands the life of one of the characters in exchange for granting the vial of angel's blood, which was requested. So basically the players can trade one of their own people to be basically enslaved and then subsequently sacrificed. Or they can face off against Archimedes and kill him. Okay. So yeah, that's a different. That's a different kind of arrangement, because you can also rescue someone and then have that person either help you kill the dude, or if that dude kills attacks the warlock, you can then assist the warlock into in dealing with this dude. That's interesting. That's kind of funny. That's really funny. Palace of the Golden Princess comic book on Kickstarter. Okay. I don't know. I kind of like that. That was Palace of the Golden Princess, the OSR guide to playing 5th edition. I mean, I might disagree with some of the specific rule things in there, but that was well put together. I'm going to skip one of these. Now it's on to the OSR stuff. And I'm going to kind of go through these real quick. So I'm going to skip one that I decided I'm not going to cover anyway. Fantasy Mercenary is a pay-what-you-want thing from Cuervo Games. It is our first OSR product. It is pay what you want. I put the link in the chat. Fantasy Mercenary. Modification for 5th edition. I thought this was OSR. Okay, so apparently we're still on the 5th edition / OSR adjacent. 34 pages. I'm just breezing through it. This is a modification for 5th edition. You know that what's in the 5th edition and don't be coy. You know what it's the 5th edition of Don't Be Coy. Intended to bring new players, simplify and speed up the rules, but play the one-shots and short campaigns with an old-school flavor. Play on long road trips, camping trips, or parties, etc., etc. 8 basic classes, no races, backgrounds, spell list, spell slots, skills, or feats. Got the Warrior, Rogue, Crusader, Wizard, Ranger, Dwarf, Elf, and Halfling. Each gets special abilities instead of spells, although Wizards and Elves can choose some magical special abilities. So this is just basically another stripped-down 5th edition that plays more like old-school stuff. Only goes from levels 1 to 5, roughly covers the same power and numerical differentials as the full 1 to 20, but with lower hit points. Basic style domains are at level 5. Players can carry a number of large items equal to their strength score. That's an abstracted encumbrance system. I like doing that when you just want something good to go. Weapons arranged by die size, and initiative goes by weapon size. Smaller medium weapons can use strength or dex. Larger weapons can use strength. Basic armor class is built into each class. No armor selection except for a possible choice for heavy armor for warriors, crusaders, and dwarves. It's got good or lawful, mercenary or chaotic, and evil. So you've got lawful, chaotic, and evil instead. So it's a bit odd. Ability score chart. It's your linear 4. DC chart is just stripped down, pretty standard. The scores, what they do. Critical hits on a D20, double the total damage roll with modifiers included. Attack types, melee go all the way from D4 to D12. Ranged ones only go to D8. You got basic mounted rules. The lists of weapons by dice. Yeah, this is just basically stripped down 5th edition turned to an OSR game. I do like the use of like special abilities to flesh out a class. Like, how do they work? Hold on. Doesn't tell you. Like, you just get a special ability at certain levels. And they're really stripped down. There's not really spells, but you get to choose, like wizards get to choose certain special abilities that are spell-like in nature. And can be used, apparently, as much as you want. Okay. You got your costs for stronghold construction. Looks like this taken directly from old school stuff. You've got hirelings and retainer. You get to get them up to your level plus charisma modifier, so up to like 9, because you can get up to 5th level and you can get charisma mods up to 4. And each one has an effect, or each one has an ability, and then some basic stats. That's alright. Got morale rules. Basic adventure design guidelines. Oh, nice. Random encounters. So you can just go ahead and... or not random encounters. These are random... Yeah, these are random elements of an adventure, so you can throw an adventure together real quick. Alright, Fantasy Mercenary. It's not bad. I wouldn't play it because I got other things that do the same thing, but it's not bad for a pick up and go thing. Fantasy Mercenary from... Yeah, where it's all the way at the end. From Christopher Corbett. It'll get the job done. It's basically 5th edition style OSR. It's more stripped down than the other stuff I've taken a look at this week. Alright, what am I doing next? That one's a full adventure. I'm going to skip that for now. Let me take a look at Box of Roar. Because if I remember right, this one's real short and sweet. Alright, Box of Roar, a foldable dungeon, is a pay-what-you-want offering from Martin Ackerfors. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat. And foldable dungeon. Let's pop it open real quick. It is exactly what it says on the tin, provided I can actually find the damn thing. I literally just had this. Okay, here we go. So this is a foldable dungeon. It is a dungeon that is part machine, part magic, a cube outside of space, built and inhabited by the Tinker Old Lady Ragna. So this dungeon, you got your basic adventure hook, the physics, which basically has how the rooms are connected. Old Lady Ragna's location. Crank is the main computer of this place, an artificial intelligence that serves as deputy guardian. If you're hearing, like, I'm gonna disconnect my controller real quick. I don't know if my USB thing was coming in and out during all that. So each one of these is a side of a cube. And each one shows you which rooms are joined. Yeah, sorry about that. It was going in the background. I've been playing Elden Ring. You should know, you're on the Patreon, and I've got the link to the Let's Play up there. It's a Patreon exclusive Let's Play. I'm almost done with it, and I will be linking it again in the patron stuff. But I've been using my PS4 controller, but I use a USB cable to hook it up. And the USB cable in question is kind of shit. So it keeps falling in and out. Which is interesting when you're playing a Souls game and the damn controller comes unplugged in the middle of a boss. But but that's what it was. Sorry about that. It's probably been doing it this entire time, hasn't it? Anyway, this is a 6-room dungeon where the rooms are on the side of a cube. You can actually print it out. Does it have it? Yeah, it absolutely does. The entire dungeon map, you can print it out and then fold it and glue it, and then you've got a dungeon on a cube. I kind of like the idea more than I actually like this individual dungeon. Each room is exactly square. You've got a room with a well in it. You've got a room with you got a side with a cottage on it. The cottage has various treasures and books. You got a side with a pond on it. And then you got the clockwork engine, which is on one side. See? It's on one side. So there's no internal And that's where the control panel is. And then you got the 4 coils. So yeah, this is... and this is OSR in that it's very neutral. You don't see any stats on any of this stuff. So you've got this encounter table that has like sneaky skeletons, the player of games, statues, movable statues, Cleanomats, an enormous raven, but none of them are statted out because it's assumed that you're going to stat them out according to your particular rule set. So this is really kind of rules agnostic, and I kind of like it. I kind of like. Here's the thing: I like the idea of it more than I like the actual dungeon because it's very simplistic. But with some modifications, this could be a really, really neat little theme. So that's Box of Roar. I like the idea. I gotta admit, I like the idea. So what's next on the agenda? Dragon Bone. Just a very light hack RPG. Let me see how many pages this is. Let me see if this is still pay what you want. Dragon Bones, a very light hack RPG from Doppelganger Publishing. It is an OSR, a fast and furious OSR. Create characters in less than a minute. Also die in less than a minute. Play with your brain, not your stats. So here we go. I will put the link in, and I will open up Dragon Bones to see exactly what this has to offer. This is 3 pages long, so it's not that particularly here. It's light version. It's got basic rules. You can be a fighter. Can use any armor, shield, or any weapon to hit bonus, add level. Thief. Use leather armor only, no shield, any missile weapon, any one-handed melee weapon. You add level times or divide by 2. You add +3 to the ability rolls, backstabbing, +4 to hit, and 2 points of damage. Let's see. Abilities. A character includes a strong ability, +3 to all rolls that fall under that attribute, and you gain a new ability at level 4 and 7. And there's only 4 abilities. Vigor, which is kind of like Constitution and Strength combined. Agility, Charisma, and then Knowledge, which is kind of like Intelligence and Wisdom combined. Spells, use the description in the SRD as a rule of DC to avoid a spell is 15. Use the damage dice of the spell to determine its power, because I think it uses power rather than actual dice. Use information on the SRD as monsters are defined by their CR and HD, AC, and possible special attacks abilities. Monsters have only 1 attack per round, 5 addition conversion, multiply the CR times 2 to get the hit dice. To hit bonus, add the hit dice, keep the AC. In Dragon Bones, the difficulty of killing monsters depends on the ratio between their hit dice CR and the character's level. Monster's hit points equals 2 plus the monster's hit dice minus the character's level. So the monsters actually get easier as you approach their level. Not bad. In the case of several characters fighting against a single monster, calculate monster hit points using the highest character's hit dice. So that tells you that it was basically made for like single players. Armor class determines the ability of hitting a target in combat. Dragon Bones uses the ascending AC system. There's your AC. Whenever you have to perform an action that's not a combat action, roll a DC versus the DC, which is based on the standard DC matrix from the books, except only 3 of them. Combat, players automatically win initiative. D20 plus 2 hit bonus is greater than or equal to 6 basic attack roll. All weapons inflict 1 point of damage except powerful spells, Dragon's Breath, etc. That inflict 1 per hit dice or whatever. Weak monster removal. At the end of the turn, monsters with a base of 1 hit point and that have suffered a fail attack are eliminated / flee. So if you attacked one but missed, it's going to run at the end of the turn anyway. As long as it's got 1 hit point. Which is just a basic morale check. That's cool. We no longer speak of Dungeon Master, but the Spectacle Master, because Dungeon Master is a trademark term. Also, everything that generates the spectacular, the unheard of, takes precedence over the basic rules. You got basics for weapons, including unarmed attack. Two-handed weapons gives you +1 to hit, -1 to AC. Two-weapon fighting gives you -2 to AC, but +2 to hit. And improvised weapons are just as non-magical weapons with a lifetime of 1d6 rounds. You can defend, gives you +2 to combat advantage. Charge to hit gives you +2 to hit. Throw a projectile, drop something heavy, help someone do something, or team up to cast a spell, which gives a flat bonus of +5 instead of advantage because it doesn't use the advantage stat. Because mathematically it's the same thing. And then use of improvised weapons and maneuvers will favor the appearance of statuses, and it gives you some basic statuses such as blinded, paralyzed, stunned, or poisoned. Breaking the scenery. Every action against the scenery, every critical has a 50% chance of breaking the scenery. And then monsters can fight each other, because of course monsters are not some monolithic army against the players. And then you got fast dungeon generation. Nice. It's not bad. Dragon Bones, that'd be good. A good little solo thing, especially with randomized stuff. You add like 2 more randomized table to generate individual monsters in there. And you're good to go. I like how it gives links to other generators. That's not a bad little thing. That's Dragon Bones Light version. I wouldn't use it to run something at the table, but I'd totally use it for like a solo thing. I'm going to skip most of these because I'm starting to run out of steam here. Let's take a look at Red Hack. Is it still pay what you want? Yes, it is. Here is the link for Red Hack. It is a pay what you want thing from the Nat one, and it is I like this art style, even though it is abstracted to hell, and I usually don't like abstracted art styles. I kind of like this one. It's 85 pages. I'm not going all the way through it. Gives you the intro to Red Hack. It is a classless games, and it deals with mortal characters that are reasonably easy to kill. Yeah, you got. They use deadly combat, which is par for the course. Deadly magic with misfires and mutations. That's cool. Red Hack is not great for a group of players all new to tabletop role-playing games. I would not necessarily put that in front of a game like this, but it might be useful for this one. So you've got your standard usual dice set, DC check for most things versus a room difficulty. I guess it's got a unified difficulty thing. It does use the advantage and disadvantage rules. It's about using all resources available to stay ahead of the curve. This includes the traditional hit point abilities, but also some new concepts such as SUP, UD, and load. Alright. Character creation and advancement. You select race and roll abilities. You select hit dice and ID. You select saves and select feats, because it's classless, of course. You got your... Oh, you do not have your standard 6. This is more akin to Dungeon Crawl Classics. You got Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Charisma, and Luck. That is straight up Dungeon Crawl Classics. Ability scores are generated by rolling dice. You roll, I guess it's 3d6. Wait, what do you roll? Oh, here we go. You roll Hello, thank you for joining me, and welcome. Yeah, I'm just going through Red Hack. So the ability score you roll varies depending on which race you pick in this one. And that reminds me... Well, it doesn't remind me of Tunnels and Trolls, but Tunnels and Trolls uses a tangentially related thing where different kin get different stat or stat multipliers. In this one, instead of that, you're going to roll different numbers of dice for different stats depending on what you pick. And basic bonuses. And you pick a hit dice and initiative dice. That's what ID means. Okay. So... I don't get it. Hold on. Okay. So you pick a D4. You pick between D4s to D12s for hit dice and initiative dice. The same die is used for hit dice and initiative dice, with higher hit dice resulting in higher hit points, but lower initiative meaning you go faster. So there is an incentive to choose a lower ID, because you will be going first, and going first is often more important in a lot of games than just being able to tank it out. So I actually kind of like that. I kind of like how that's balanced. Then you pick 2 ability scores to receive proficiency bonuses on. Then you pick features of feats which replace the traditional classes. So you've got 3 feats at level 1, and you pick them from the various feat charts. There is no benefit for sticking to a single group, so you can pick from all of them, and you just assemble your character that way. It's not a bad way of doing it. These, you have to have cantrips in order to cast arcane spells, and you cannot have cantrips to pick vow in order to get divine feats. So you cannot be both a arcane and a divine caster. I don't know if I like that, because some of my favorite character ideas use both. All right, I guess. But yeah, these basically give you access to different spells and different blessed abilities for the divine. Experts are your bards and rogues. And then you've got primal feats that's like druids. And do we got like berserkers? No, well, kind of. You don't have like a berserker thing, but you've got like stealth and offensive stuff for the primal feats. And then warfare feats, this is just your martial training and such. Then you pick up to 5 skills. These are mostly based... It looks like these are mostly like 3rd edition stuff, with lore replacing the knowledge skills. Rumor monger, that was an important one, just to get the local knowledge thing. There's a couple additions, but otherwise it's very similar to 3.x. Then you just choose a little bit of starting gear out of a menu, pick your spells out of the magic chapter, and then you just figure out your hit points, armor class, proficiency bonus, and load. So yeah, let me take a look at the advancement. I will say this. For character creation, for a quick, classless, open method of character creation, Red Hack is not bad. It's not super in-depth, as should be expected from something where you can create characters in a minute, but it's not bad. Character advancement, 1 experience per session. So it's XP per session. I can get behind that. I'm not a big fan of stuff like that, but I can at least get behind it, because I can see where it's coming With time, the level gap between the PCs may grow, but that's okay. PCs get better at what they do, but the difference will never be massively significant. So even a smart level 1 PC can be helpful to a party of level 9. Is that correct? So each level you can get up to level 10. It boosts your proficiency bonus with a max of +5, so that is a maximum of a 4-point spread. That is true. That's not going to give you a huge bonus. So there is a meat grinder section where you can make level 0 characters. That's not bad. And then you get +1 to an ability points throughout. And then some feats to boost. None of this is incredibly outstanding in terms of making the difference up. What I will say is this. So far, I like the way that this is well laid out. It's easy to understand, easy to read. I can speed read through this and get most of these things. It uses a... Does it use a dice chain? Yeah, it absolutely uses a dice chain. For weapon traits. Okay. Does it use dice chains for other things? Armor. Requires the armor training feat. It's abstracted to just heavy, light, none, and shield. Equipment does have a durability, so it can be destroyed or sundered. It absolutely uses the usage dice. And those are the usage dice is like a dice chain where instead of keeping track of like I've got like 8 torches and 12 arrows or whatever, every time you use it, you just roll a dice to see that if you've got it. And on a 1 or 2, you reduce the dice until it gets down to like nothing, and then you're out. I actually kind of like that for abstracted role-playing. It cuts down a lot on bookkeeping. And the thing about it is that a lot of... I actually like bookkeeping, but the whole premise behind bookkeeping is to make resource management an important thing. And is not... It's just annoyance. It's just annoyance with no payoff. So if you have a system like this where you've got a usage die that offers the same sort of resource management requirement, but without the bookkeeping, that is just as good as bookkeeping in a system where that doesn't have something like that. So you have a supply up to their int score, 5 supplies in 1 load. Supplies basically can replenish usage dice. It's basically the PC having the foresight to pack something even if the player forgets. And I kind of like that mostly because I deal with some people that don't exactly think things through. So I completely get that. Got hireling rules. That's just fine. I'm not going to look through all of this. They do have crafting rules. That's nice. You got your basic... Combat is turn-based. Each character has a turn after one another. You roll your initiative die and go from highest to lowest. Wait, what? That directly contradicts the idea that lower initiative is better. I would have thought that a higher initiative die, because of the trade-off at the beginning, I would have thought that lower initiative die would go first. Unless this goes with a premise that if you're moving first, I don't know. See, a lot of times in a direct one-on-one thing, going first actually helps a whole lot. So that directly I don't like that. If that's how it goes, then that just completely throws the whole idea of initiative die tied to balance hit die out of the window. Basically, basic D20 to attack. Got that. Saving throws do the same thing. You got morale checks. DC 11 roll. You got your specific things for grappling. Yes, I'm not going to go through all this. I do like how it's got basic exploration rules and rules for renown and reputation. So that's okay. Let's look at the spell casting. You've only got 4 levels, basically. And you have to roll... Instead of memorizing, you roll a DC check. And if you fail, you can get a natural 20 and get critical success on a spell. But if you fail or you roll a natural 1, you can start to mutate, which is direct out of something like DC CRPG. And something like Spellburn. Here we go. Spellburn and Magical Mishaps are inspired. You could say that they're inspired. I say they're almost ripped off. But hey, it's a good system. If you're going to take it, then take it. You can Spellburn to add to the... basically reducing your physical stats in order to add to your magic roll. Yeah, it's DCC RPG style casting. I like it. I can't argue with it. As your spellcaster gets old, they'll start to get more and more warped. That's neat. And then you got a Game Master section that just gives you additional rules. And generators. Lots and lots of generators. Alright. Well, I'm going to call this one at that. That was Red Hack. Aside from that mild thing with the initiative, Red Hack's decent. I like it. Could use a little work on that initiative thing. I'm not sure. I'm only going to cover one more thing. And then I'm going to call it, because my voice is starting to go. Starting to lose my voice here. I'm going to go with a Salvager Solo. It is a pay what you want, and I will link it in the chat. And it is... collect salvage from wrecked spaceships. You will gain in power and equipment if you live long enough or retire to a life of luxury in this one-page solo RPG. So this is a one-page solo RPG, and it's actually only a... okay. Yeah, that's a front and back of the page. And it's, as usual, it's a trifold. You've got your characterizing individuals have taken to clearing the dangerous task of salvaging these derelicts. They will go rich or die trying. Whenever a test is made, roll 1 red die for the player and 1 white die for the opponent or obstacle. Add in any modifiers, and the side with the highest result wins. Ties go to the player. To create a character, roll 2d10 and add the results together. That is the number of character points to create your character. Split them between the abilities below. You've got Fight, Charm, Athletics, Mechanics, and Security. And I don't know... That system seems really, really easy to be lopsided. But I kind of like it. Oh, also health and energy. Each failed test will lose either health or energy. Once either has reached 0, the character dies. Ship to be salvage's size is based on the number of hexes each way. Roll 1d10, determine the size. If the ship has a reactor, bridge, and any engineering room, it's considered a complete ship and is worth 3 times the rolled salvage result. So you roll 1d10 and it's either 2x2, 3x3, or 4x4. And then you basically, when you enter them, so you sketch them out, hold on. So you would sketch them out on this, say 4x4 hexes. So you would go 4x4 hexes. That doesn't work very well. 4 hexes across and 4 long. How does that even work? And then each hex you go into, you roll to find out what it is. And each one has a particular check. So if you go in there and there's an armory, you've got to roll security +2, I guess. And it takes off health if you fail. And then you go through them. And if a particular ship randomly generates a reactor, bridge, and an engineering room, then it's considered a complete ship. And this is the salvage. Each room is done once you've cleared it. And you basically have to clear all of the hexes, right? After all the hexes have been successfully cleared, roll to collect the salvage. If the ship has a reactor, bridge, and engineering section, that is considered a ship and receives ×3 salvage. The character can have up to 2 items and 3 consumables off of this thing, which gives you bonuses to various checks. A salvager can leave a wrecked ship at any time, but they must pay a 500 credit fine and they cannot come back to the same ship. If a salvager ever drops to 0 credits, then they are forced to retire and roll in the 0 retirement chart. That basically is this chart is basically an entire page out of a 6-page trifold that is just what your bad end is. Like it's just a random bad end generator. That's hilarious. Because not counting the character sheets and the hexes to describe your rule set, and you decide to pick one of those pages just to show how a character dies after what a character ends up doing after they're forced to retire. While working eat booze, you walk yourself out of an airlock. Oh God. If you have... Oh, and get this. This part is optional too. Because this is if you retire with 1,000 credits or if you retire with 10,000 credits. You can decide to retire, and this shows you what you do. So out of this, keep in mind, you have this page here that has rules for actually playing. And you have this page here that has rules for actually playing. And this one has the freaking title thing on it. So you actually have more content. Or as much content. Just tell what? No, I'm going to say it. I like this. I like Salvager Solo. Is it in depth? No. I bet I could write like a little application. This is the kind of stuff that I would... if this was like 15, 20 years ago or whatever, I would just bust out like the Flash designer and design a real quick little Flash game based on it. It's funny. It's funny, man. All right, I got to wrap up pretty soon. How long have I been going here? I've been going for a little bit. I could do it in like 10 minutes. I got 2 adventures, 3 adventures, and an entirely different role-playing game. Yeah, I don't think I can cover any of those in about 10 minutes. Well, this has been the RPG Crawler with my quick look at Pay What You Want / free RPGs. If you decide to use any of these RPGs, like for a little one-shot or for like inspiration or as alternate rules, and you end up liking them, feel free, even if you paid 0 on a Pay What You Want, go back and throw $1 or whatever at the you can rebuy the Pay What You Want ones and like throw a couple bucks their way if it's a part of your gaming table, and you can afford it, and you should be able to if you've got like 4 or 5 people. I don't know how it is nowadays, but I know back in the day we used to have, collect a couple bucks for pizza or whatever snacks you were doing. If you're going to use one of these at the table, collect a couple bucks and throw it the author's way or something. I like to do... I think I would do that if I ran like one of the adventures. I would be like, at the end, I'd be like, if you enjoyed it, we can always rebuy it from the author and see what the table party's up on that. Anyway, just had a hellish schedule this year. I am surprised I got the RPG Let's Plays done as it is this year, because it has been just one thing after the other. Mostly family health, but also other things. So hopefully I'll be able to turn that around. I'm going to head off here. Until next time, take care and goodbye.